All right. This is Coach Smith, Love the Game 24/7 podcast. I hope you're ready.
Are you ready?
I hope you guys are ready for this evening's podcast. And glad to have you. Appreciate you guys joining me on IG, YouTube, and Facebook. Looking forward to our conversation tonight. And if you have any questions, excuse me. If you have any questions, feel free to put them in the chat and I'll try to get to some of them. Not going to be too long this evening. Thank you guys for subscribing and on YouTube and following on TikTok, Instagram, and Facebook. Um, so whether you're joining me live or you're listening to the recording, because I do post a lot of shorts on TikTok and Instagram and Twitter, so you can follow Love the Game 24/7 by going to my link tree. You can get to my link tree, Love the Game 24_7 on Linktree, and you can get to all my social media platforms. You can follow me at Love the Game 24_7 on YouTube and get the shorts, get the full video if you miss the live podcast tonight, or if you get on late and you want to be sure you get all the great information that we're sharing on the Love the Game 24/7 podcast. Really appreciate you guys. Thank you for uh, helping grow this platform and grow uh, this podcast on recruiting and helping the young middle school and high school athletes be prepared for uh, the next level or every level that they desire and have the opportunity to grow and move and go forward and go up and be successful at whatever level they play when they go to college, whether it's FBS, FCS, or Division 2, or even Division 3. Want you to be successful, and so this podcast is all about trying to inform athletes, young athletes, middle school age and high school age, and parents to be sure that you are successful at the next level, that you have a resource, that you have an outlet to help you get through um, the good times as well as the bad times and the struggles, because we all have them as athletes, whether we're female or male. And so, March Madness is really, active and moving, right? And so everybody is excited for that. And so this platform is here to talk about all things recruiting and uh, high school and collegiate sports. And so I'm thankful to be able to um, have this opportunity. God has blessed me to be able to have my own personal experience as an athlete as well as a father with my sons and helping them grow and be who they are, whether they continue to play sports or not. And I'm thankful to have both my sons are doing well. Um, One's still active in sports, and the other is just active in his career and doing what he loves to do. And and so I'd like to think that um, we as parents did um, the best job as possible. We were not perfect by no stretch of the imagination. We made our mistakes, and um, but I think we did more positive than we did negative. But yet and still, we made some mistakes. And so, and today, even having adult children, we talk about those things in our household, about our faults, and hoping that they don't make the same mistakes or make sure they don't make the same mistakes. But um, I like to think, with my experience on this podcast that I share quite often, that it is helpful and beneficial to you as an athlete and as a parent, because I like to think that I'm a uh, subject matter expert in when it comes to athletics and sports. I like to think I'm a subject matter expert because of what I've been through personally in my struggles in trying to get a scholarship that I did ultimately did receive and was able to accomplish. But the road was tough, and I want to be sure that no one has to deal with that comes into my space, okay, and making sure that you learn as an athlete and a parent on how to navigate through those things. And so I appreciate you guys joining. Like I said, I appreciate you taking the time to either watch this live or the recording later on, or you get the shorts on TikTok and YouTube. But be sure you subscribe to me, and help Coach Smith with Love the Game 24/7 grow its platform. I'm trying to be sure I reach as many people, young people as possible, your young athletes out there, your young ladies, your young men. Um, and so tonight's discussion, you know, um, just share some personal story, because the conversation tonight for you young athletes, we'll probably have a couple of things, but tonight my main focus for you young athletes out there, as well as you parents, are you prepared and ready? Okay, that's what you should be asking yourselves right now. Are you prepared and ready? And what I mean by are you prepared and ready? Are you prepared and ready when it's time for you to uh, leave home, because you've been blessed to earn a scholarship, young lady, young lady athlete, a young man athlete out there. You were blessed to be able to get a scholarship. Everything is, all the excitement. We're past all that excitement. You got your scholarship, and now it's time to be prepared to leave home. And so you have to ask yourself, parents, you have to ask yourself, young lady, young man, are you ready? Are you prepared? Because I've seen too many situations myself when I played, and you think as we uh, evolve, as time passed, that you would see things sometimes, less and less happen, but yet and still you still see some young ladies or some young men that uh, don't take advantage of their opportunity, or they try taking advantage of the opportunity, but they weren't really prepared to leave home. Okay, they really weren't prepared to deal with some of the things that go along with, um, being a college athlete, because all the years you played little league and middle school and high school ball, you were home, right? You were near mom and dad, and so, but mom and dad have a responsibility in making sure that we don't just get all caught up in the hype and the um, um, of recruiting, okay, and we forget about making sure, have we prepared our young athlete, our young lady, our young man to leave home? Have we had those discussions? Are you doing certain things to make sure you're preparing them to leave the nest, right? Are you, as a parent, you got to ask yourself these questions. Am I preparing my young lady, my young athlete, my young man? We're all excited. Yeah, they're playing Division 1 or whatever it is, Division 2 or FCS. They got a scholarship. Of course, it's worth Lord knows how much, depending on how much the school costs, where your young athlete was blessed to achieve their scholarship. Whether it's a full scholarship or not, they're getting some sort of assistance and athletic scholarship to help supplement their education. So you have to ask yourself, parents, and this is mainly on you, parents, what are you doing to ensure that your young athlete, your young lady, your young man, that when it's time to go, when you drop them off and they see you pulling off, okay, in that vehicle, waving goodbye, or, not goodbye, but see you later. We'll see you, during the season, of course, we will, of course, make trips, and those things do help, of course. But like some of us, like myself, my mother couldn't travel to the Midwest from Florida, being a single mom, and see us play, see me and my brother play. And so a lot of us fall into that. All right. And so that those are some things, of course we'll talk about NIL, that's kind of help, but still, yet and still, everybody's not getting NIL money like that to be able to fly a parent in and all those different things. Everybody doesn't have it like that. Um, so let's be realistic. Let's be 100. So, parents, you have to ask yourself, what are you doing to help prepare your young person, your young lady athlete, your young man athlete, of all the different things that happen? I hear Coach Derek Tatum talking about this on Elite Talent Football. I follow him. He's an awesome brother, doing a lot of things, helping those kids in Georgia area where he's at. And I hear him and the others that I know, people that I know that played college ball and pro ball just like I did, who have a platform. And um, the conversation is always, parents got to be realistic, help your young athlete be realistic, help them understand that they may have to put some work in. Doesn't mean um, that they can't achieve their dream of playing at the next level in college, because they can, but there is going to take some work. And you may not be stop always comparing yourself. There's some things you can compare, of course, but you can't always rely on that comparison. You just have to compare yourself to yourself. Am I putting in work, right? Am I doing what I need to do to give myself some exposure? And parents, that's where you come in at as well. And that's why sometimes it's good to have a third party, an outside person who don't really have um, uh, an investment necessarily like you do as a parent. They may have some investment because maybe they're training, or maybe they're doing like what I'm doing, a podcast and doing a digital course and trying to help teach and help bring some clarity and understanding to this business of sports and recruiting for you young people out there. Um, and so you have to understand that as parents, you have to start preparing your young person early. I had conversations just like my dad used to have with us. He used to tell us, "Oh, it's going to be, when you go off to college, you're not going to be home. You got to be able to stand on your own feet. We're always going to be there to support you as your parents, but you got to learn how to make some decisions, and you got to start doing that by unwinding the leash and allowing your student to do some things to see how well they would do in making some decisions while they're close at home, while they are at home, before you send them off. But we all get all excited about the recruiting and all this stuff when they get to, late middle school and high school, and they're getting some exposure and some attention, and everything's, everybody's just not paying attention sometimes. And I know, because as a coach, I'll share a story with you, and that was one of my things I was going to do. I remember having a player, a young man, that I would have never thought would have messed up his opportunity to play college ball. Great young man, humble young man when I first started coaching, and really good kid. And and because of a lot of things, you know, single parent, um, you got the girlfriend stuff going on, um, and so I remember when this young man went off to college. He went off to an ACC school, and the kid was a great athlete. I mean, he reminded me of Eric Dickerson. I mean, he was a running back, like 6'1", you know, good size. Also played free safety for us, DB, sometimes corner. But the kid was just a great athlete, and I believe he was maybe a 3 or 4 star athlete. He was one of the top running backs in the area back at Clearwater Central Catholic (CCC). Great young man, uh, great family. But I remember when he went off to college, and when he went off, to school, to ACC school up in North Carolina. I'm not going to say, but he went off to the school up there in North Carolina, and there's more than one ACC school in North Carolina, so don't try to figure it out. But the young man was a straight baller. He was a good player, and like I said, a good young man. But he ran into some things when he got to college. Like when you have to stand up on the chair and sing your fight song from high school, or you got to carry a teammate's equipment. But then he also had some personal things going on, because I believe his mom may have lost her job temporarily. Then he also had the girlfriend, missing the girlfriend, and all those types of things came into play. And I remember the school was reaching out to the head coach saying, "Hey, can you talk to the young man, because we really are high on him and know he's a great talent, but for some reason he doesn't seem like he's fitting in." But we thought he was doing great, um, but he's not really talking to us. I think at one time he wasn't even come out of his room sometimes. He was, complaining about saying how some guys may have been kind of hazing, and I think there was kind of a little stretch. But we all go through those things, and if parents, if you don't know, if you didn't play college sports and you don't have a clue about how some of this stuff happens, that's why you need to partner up with like Love the Game 24/7 and these discussions and these podcasts that we have. try to help prepare you as a parent, and when you have to face some of these things, as well as trying to help prepare your young person, before some of these things happen. And I remember talking to the young man, all our kids that were getting recruited, and sharing some stories, and just trying to be sure that they were, prepared as best we knew. But if your young person is not really talking much, then that's a sign that you need to be on them about communicating a little bit more and better, and not the yelling and not the fussing and not all that stuff, but sincerely sitting down because you're asking them and you want to know. Okay, and you gotta have, especially when you're a single parent, man, you gotta have some, not necessarily just other family, but you gotta have some resources, right? You gotta have something to try to help your young person, your young lady, your young man, because of all these different relationships and connections, and you want your young person to be successful when they go off to college. Everybody's going to get homesick. That's normal. Okay, I don't care if you're close to home or not, but you're on that campus and you're not around your family as much, and everybody gets homesick. Everybody goes through to where, even when I was in college, and same thing in pros, you had to sing your fight song. You go to college, you sing your high school fight song. You get a chance to go to the pros, you're singing your college fight song. You're carrying somebody's equipment. If you can't humble yourself and carry someone veteran guy's equipment, that's tradition. There's nothing hazing about that. Now, are there some times where some people may get some things carried away? Yeah, absolutely. I would be lying to you if I said that some people can take some things too far. And that's where coaches come in at. And hopefully you got a coach that has some common sense, but we know everybody don't have common sense, right? You know, everything ain't common to everybody like it is to you or to me. Okay. And so that's why you still have to do your best to try to help your athlete hang in there. And maybe that is some reasons why some young people transfer it, in the transfer portal. Those are some of the reasons too. And a lot of that is because we didn't prepare our young person, you know, for what they were going to have to face when they went off to school. Because maybe they were, you know, the big person on campus, and they didn't have to. They were the ones who always initiated some things, but now they're on the other end of this thing because they're not the big guy or the big, young lady on campus, and so we're not doing a good job in a lot of instances, like I would think we should be doing this day and time. We still have some of the same issues, and just like I shared about this young man where he never got going again, where he played college football, really had his opportunity to play college football because he came home and left that school and didn't tell anybody, right? And hey, Cleo, appreciate you joining me, brother, on Facebook. Yes, sir. And I see you saying, yeah, you had your 12-year-old. He attended a soccer tryouts, middle school. First day he came home and was upset and sad that out of 100 kids, only 12 were only going to be selected. And he also knew that he was not going to be selected. And that happened. And he also knew, because of his height, he was sad and upset once the tryouts were over. And I did tell him to keep trying with another sport. Um, and you're asking the question, how do we as parents handle this and encourage them to try another sport? That's a good question, Cleo. I appreciate you joining me. Cleo's a former colleague of mine here at the local college here, and that's a good question, Cleo. Um, and I can share a story, personally myself, playing um, little league football. Like, there was a game where I was the only one that scored all the touchdowns. Even the opposing team, they didn't score any touchdowns. I scored all the touchdowns. And I remember boohoo crying that I wasn't selected the most valuable player after scoring the only person scoring touchdowns. And I remember my father telling me, son, go ahead and cry. There's nothing wrong with you crying, but you can't live there. You just gotta. You got to get past it. You got to keep working hard. So whenever they call your number, you got to make sure you're ready and you got to be prepared. And I remember him telling me that, and it hurt. And sometimes we got to allow our kids to go through that hurt because it's gonna make them stronger. It didn't do anything, but it just that situation happened to me, like similar to what you just said, Cleo, with your son, 12 years old. You know, that's where you get with your son and you help him work on whatever it is that he needs to work on. You might even need to go have you. Isn't There's nothing wrong with you going to the coach and asking. And if a coach says that the only reason why he didn't choose your son was because he's his size, then you might want to find another place for your son to, to play, where a coach is not going to be that um, hard on some players, because I think with soccer, size doesn't matter as much as it does like in football or basketball a lot of times. But sometimes you'll get a player who may not be as tall, but because their skill set is so good, they're so good at what they do, that you just got to have them because they've worked so hard in their skill set, right? They work so hard to be good at their strengths and not worrying about their weaknesses. So focus on those strengths that you have. Because I remember I was short. I was only, I'm only five, just shy of 5'10", but I remember I was always one of the smallest kids growing up. And that was one thing that my father taught me is, hey, you can't make yourself be taller, but you can make sure you get in the weight room and make sure you're one of the strongest people, one of the strongest guys on your team. Make sure you work at being fast because you're a fast kid. Make sure you're always one of the fastest kids. You're one of the quickest kids. Make sure that you work on your skill set, and it's not always about I need to go play another sport. I'm not, and I agree. There should be more than one sport your kid is good at and that they like. But I know there's probably that one sport he probably loves soccer, but you may want to get him some training to make sure you get him in the weight room and get some training because he's not too young to do um, some weight training. It just depends on um, how good that he listens. When it comes to some of that, and you can only do so much, of course, at that age, but you can do a lot of field work, right? Appreciate you're welcome, Cleo. But you can work with him and do some field work, how to dribble that soccer ball, be one of the best dribblers with that soccer ball, do some different drills with him. So he's great at doing that. And so that coach, he may say, oh, he's not tall, but man, he's the best dribbler with that soccer ball that I have on the team. He knows how to pass the ball and and get guys open and make great passes. All those other things um, that can help make your athlete a better athlete, you do that. So I tell them all the time, don't focus on your weaknesses. You know, can I work on my speed? Absolutely. Right? Can I work on being a really skillful at my, you know, in my sport? Whether it's basketball, can I be a make sure I can handle the basketball and dribble the basketball well? I can make sure I can work at getting my shot off, right? And make the shot. Steph Curry is a prime example of a guy who may not be physically the biggest guy, but I tell you what, he knows how to get his shot off. He knows how to dribble that basketball and make things happen. And it's the same thing in soccer or any sport. Focus on your strengths, right? And as a parent, it's not wrong for you to go talk to a coach and say, "Hey, coach, what does my kid, my young person, what does he need to do, or what does she need to do to try to make sure they get an opportunity to make this team next year?" Right? Um, and Yeah, absolutely, Cleo. Yeah, focus on your strengths. I was fast, I was quick. I got in the weight room. I didn't lift with the small guys. I got in the weight room and lifted with the bigger guys to make sure I was going to be strong in the weight room. And pound for pound, when I would get in the weight room, I was just as strong as the offensive lineman. You know, I was lifting more than twice my size. I was 160, 70 pounds. I was lifting more than twice my size, in the bench press and doing all those things in my vertical. So I made sure I could catch the ball well. I knew I was tough. I could take hits, right? So that's what we have to do, encourage our young people. And we also have to let them be honest with them. Just say, hey, I understand you're hurt. And that's normal. But let's try to figure out this thing together, what we need to work on to help you make that team next time, right? But that's a great question, Cleo. I appreciate you joining, brother. And absolutely, man, that's tough. And like I said, I remember having that situation with my father when I knew, I was just as good as some of those other guys. And my father would just always tell me, focus on your strengths and just be sure you're ready. So when they do call your number, right? You're ready and prepared to make something happen. And it was times where, my father told me that, man, it was just like the best thing I heard, my father telling me that and encouraging me that way. And it was times that maybe I would carry the football, man, in some games and maybe only one or two or three times. But it was times where I would score a touchdown just on one carry. And it started getting the coach's attention, like, man, this boy don't even play much, but he's out here making some things happen with the limited time that he's being out on the football field, he's making the best of his opportunity. And so that's what we have to teach our young people. And things may not always go your way, but make sure you make the best of your opportunity. Make sure that if something does happen to where you don't make it, it's not because you didn't show that you had the skill set or that you didn't do well. It was just, hey, there was somebody that was better than me. Okay. And now I got to go back to the drawing board. I live not too far from where Michael Jordan went to high school, where he got cut his freshman year off the basketball team. And that just made him work harder. Right. Those who know about Michael Jordan sharing that story, it's the same thing, man. And I just remember when my father just shared that information with me and just said, man, just, you just, yeah, you should have been the most valuable player. He didn't deny, yeah, you should have gotten chosen. But hey, that coach saw something different, who made the choice on that opposing team. And so, what are you gonna do about it? And like he told me, it's okay to cry, man, but we just got to move on, right? And use that to push you, to work just that much harder, right? But like I said, we have to prepare our young people um, to be successful, and be honest with them and be realistic with them and say, yeah, hey, you're gonna have some situations where you're not gonna get chosen or you may not do well, but hey, you got to pick yourselves up, right? And we got to go back to the drawing board and figure this thing out together. And then like I said, you got to start loosening that leash that you had on your kids. I know when our kids got to being closer to like their into their sophomore junior year, we start letting them go out and hang out with their friends a little bit, but having that conversation, hey, you're gonna be in by this time, right? You're going here, and I better not find out you went somewhere else. And if you do, there's some consequences, right? And you got to make sure you stick with those consequences, because when they go off to college, you're not going to be there to tell them that they can't go to this party, they can't go hang out with certain friends. So you got to start that stuff, um, folks, family. You got to start that stuff early. You got to start having those conversations and saying and let them know, hey, we're going to loosen this leash a little bit to see how well you make decisions, because you're going to be leaving here going off to college. We get all excited about the scholarship and all that other stuff, and that's great, and you should. But don't forget about the other stuff too that's going to sustain them and help them make good decisions so they do reach the success that they're capable of reaching, right? And granted, they're gonna make some knucklehead decisions sometimes, right? They are, and we got to be there to catch them, okay? And we got to be there to, not say I told you so. And we've all made that mistake. I'm just as guilty as the next person, and I've learned. And just as parents, when we make mistakes, we got to learn to back it up and tell them, hey, dad was wrong, hey, mom was wrong, right? Um, and so, and but it's on us, okay, and then it's on them. But you got to start loosening that leash up a little bit when they get ready to prepare, like that 10th to 12th grade year. You got to start letting them have a little bit of freedom, you know, with some guidelines, right? Because when they go to college and they're on that scholarship, that coach is gonna have some guidelines. She's gonna have some guidelines with her athletes. He's gonna have some guidelines with his athletes. So, we got to help them understand too. Yeah, just cause you're away from home and you playing that sport, and mom and dad is not there to tell you, but that coach has rules. That coach has guidelines, and you got to learn how to respect those guidelines, right? So we got to start that at home. We can't just expect them just to know that and just to do that, and we hadn't prepared them at home, right? And so, like I said, that young man that I coached, I would have never thought that he would have done things the way that he did. He never kind of let on, too much with that. And I knew some personal things, about that he was dealing with. Um, but we can't always allow our young people to use that as excuses to miss out on their opportunity, right? And like I said, that young man never got the opportunity to play ball like I was hoping to see him play at the next level, and it could have been avoided, right? And we did our best. I know the high school, our head coach, you know, times he and I would talk, and we're like, man, what do we do? How do we allow this to happen, man? This, especially this young man that just was a good young man, and I just hate that something like that had to happen. And so that's what I'm saying. That's why I'm doing what I'm doing, this podcast, and taking opportunity, because we got to cut that stuff out. We got to limit these kinds of things happening. And now when we've done those things, right, as parents, as best we know how, and we feel like, hey, I've done, coach, I did what you said. I kind of let that leash loose a little bit, as they got a little older. We got to teach them how to date the right way. We got to teach our young ladies how to date the right way, our young men how to date the right way, you know, to protect themselves so they don't lose out. Unless that boyfriend or girlfriend got some money that's paying for your education, I'm sorry. You're on the back burner. You're not primary. And I know we can preach and tell them that, but I know I used to hone that in to my young men like, hey, your mama's your first girlfriend and your only girlfriend until a certain point, right? And that sport is your girlfriend that's paying the bills. Okay. That sport that you're playing that you were blessed to be able to get that scholarship for, that's your first girl, that's your next girlfriend. Okay. Being the best you can be to ensure that you get a scholarship opportunity to help pay for your education. Okay. So that's what I mean by are you prepared and are you ready, young person? Because you're just as responsible about that as well as your parents are. And you got to take responsibility as well. Okay, young person, you got to step up to the plate. But parents, we got to prepare them to be to success. We got to prepare them how to make right decisions when they get in a tough situation. I remember as young as middle school playing little league football, right? I think I was around like eighth grade, seventh, eighth grade, being confronted with friends who, at that time wanted to smoke marijuana. And so I had that peer pressure of do I go run with my homeboys who want to go get high and smoke marijuana? You know, when it wasn't during my time, it wasn't legal like it is in some states, you know. So, but not only that, my mindset was how first thing flashed in my mind was what my mom and dad said, hey, don't get caught up doing drugs. You said you want to play sports. Well, there's certain things you don't want to get caught up in, right? There's certain things you don't want to do. And same thing like with the girlfriend stuff. There's some things you don't want to get caught up in getting somebody pregnant. I told you we're gonna be 100. We're gonna have real talk on this. You know, you got to make sure. My parents are just on us. Hey, you got to make sure, man. If this is what your dream is. Is this if this is what your goal is? You can't let other people sway you or get you off focus or get you off task. If you got people that in your life that's not supporting you, okay, young person. If and parents, if you're listening as well, I hope if your young person are in relationships or friendships and it's not conducive to helping encourage them to go to the next step, then they got to make some decisions and you got to sit down and talk with them. Hey, you got to make some decisions. And I remember as just in middle school, I got friends want to smoke marijuana. I'm like, man, no, y'all going, and I remember it was hurtful because I was left by myself at the game to hang out by myself because these few friends that want to go run off, and it was quite a few of them, good handful of them. And I was like, man, no, I'm not with that. I'm trying to make sure I keep myself focused. I'm not, and here it is just middle school. This wasn't high school. This was middle school. So I had a peer pressure situation with some friends, my boys, and some of these guys I'm still tight with today. And we talk about some of this stuff about how knucklehead some of them were back then. You know, and for the most part, we all stayed on each other. I was kind of that person that would put that positive peer pressure on some of my guys. And sometimes you might get in some fights with some of your friends. You know, about some things because like, look, man, don't put that pressure on me to go do something that I'm not willing to do. If that's something that you want to do, you go right ahead and you do that. But I'm not because I got my focus. And I was scared too. I was scared. Matter of fact, I was scared what my dad would have done if I would have got caught doing something like that. That's what I was most fearful of. And so I wasn't fearful of my friends putting no pressure because I'll be ready to fight you, win or lose. But if I had to fight you, you gonna know you were in a fight. But these are some things that our young people are dealing with. None of this stuff has always been the same since all of us have been kids. We all have had to deal with some things, you know, and I had to make a decision, right? When I was confronted with some friends who want to do drugs, in middle school, I remember kids sneaking alcohol to middle school and from parents and all that kind of stuff, So, it was a lot of us have dealt with crazy things, and we as parents have to remember we've all been there and done that, you know, and we ought to be on top of some of these things. We can't get caught up with work or life or anything. We got to make sure we do everything we can, and because we want our young people to be successful. And I'm thankful, that I believe my sons are, man, these boys have got themselves a much better start than than what I did growing up. And my parents did pretty doggone good. I think we got off. My brothers and sisters and I, for the most part, had everything we needed to be successful. And when they don't have any excuse, it's on you to do what you have to do, young person, to make sure when you had the opportunity. My mindset was, man, I want to make it so I can try to help my mom, not have to work. That was my mindset. You've heard Dion say that about his mom working two jobs and all that stuff. And his goal was, like many of us, were to help our families out. That's why some of us were so dedicated. Okay. And that's still true today with a lot of athletes. I don't know if as much today as it was when I grew up, but yeah, I think some of that stuff is still very true today with some kids and some young boys and some young ladies. They're trying to make sure they be successful to try to help their situation out, right? Their family financial situation out. But as parents, we got to be sure that we don't put too much pressure on our kids, thinking that they have to, you know, um, you know, do that, you know. Um, but we just have to make sure or ensure them that, hey, things are going to be okay. I appreciate you wanting to make sure you take care of mom and dad. You want to buy mom and dad a new house and all these things. If you're able to do that, and that's great. You know, and and like I said, that's a good segue into what we have, this NIL stuff and people going viral and all those things today that we didn't have growing when we grew up. And I think those are some great things, but we have to be sure, for some of us who've never come into money growing up, you got to make sure you have somebody that's going to teach you about how to handle that money, because we got a lot of young people out here that are doing pretty good through going viral and NIL opportunities. But did you come from a family that knows how to handle that money? I had a friend just share with me the other day about having a family member of his that, you know, doing real well in their sport and got an NIL deal. He bought his mom a new car, bought dad a new car, paid off some bills for his family. But you got to remember, Uncle Sam is coming. And if you don't know how to set up um, your NIL opportunity with the LLC or something of that nature, to be sure you give yourself an opportunity to have some tax write-offs, because now when you have these NIL opportunities, you know, you have some potential write-offs that you could use. But if you don't know how to handle money, if you don't come from a family that has money, then you got to start listening to people like Anthony O'Neill, like I listen to, and like Dave Ramsey and all these different people out there that teach finance. Um, there's another lady out there, Lynn Richardson. Lynn Richardson, that's her name. Lynn Richardson. You got to tap into these people that have a good track record of teaching people about financial literacy. I know I didn't come from a family that had a lot of money, or um, I mean, we had, my dad would talk to us, teach us about how to manage a checkbook and all those different things. But yet and still, there were some things that he was limited on, but he knew some things. He owned properties and different things of that nature. He made his mistakes with some things, maybe getting too heavy in some rental properties and different things of that nature. But yeah, he owned some properties, taught us how to fix things and repair things, and taught us about investing a little bit, as much as he knew to do. But like I said, I lost my father at a young age to cancer. He lost his battle with cancer. So I took some of those things that he taught me and tried to use them. I've made my mistakes as well, had some businesses, you know, teaching my sons how to have businesses and don't make the mistakes that your dad made with some things. We live and we learn. There's some things that I know, as I do business, I won't make those mistakes. But you know, you got to get other people who know more about finances than you do to teach you about how to handle that money. Because a lot of these young people, a lot of these young ladies and young men are coming into NIL opportunities, and they have not a clue about how they should handle this money. And you got to get some training. So, like I said, Anthony O'Neill is out there, Lynn Richardson is out there. Okay, get plugged in and follow these people on Instagram and YouTube, and listen to them talking about finances. Not just your mom and dad. You should be sitting down with your young person, especially if they have some NIL opportunities, getting these scholarship opportunities. You got to get somebody who knows more about the finances. You got to get somebody that's trustworthy. Do your vetting. Okay, that's why I said somebody like Lynn Richardson and Anthony O'Neill are two awesome people that you should be plugging into as parents, and especially if you're a young person that's coming into a lot of money with NIL opportunities or have the potential to come into a lot of money with NIL and situations and being monetized on YouTube and all those different things. Um, we got to educate so you're not losing a lot of this money because you're not educated. And so we got to be sure we do all we can to be sure we educate our young people because things are a lot different. Okay, especially with this viral stuff and all on the NIL opportunities. I think it's great. Okay, it's not the NCAA's responsibility to teach your child financial literacy. It's on you as a parent. I think the NCAA has a responsibility to have those things available, just like the NFL has done over the years. You can't make a person do a certain thing on how they handle their money. I know the NFL does have some rules that they've changed where they will make sure a certain amount of money is put away towards retirement for their athletes. But that wasn't always the case. That's more recent than it has been in the past. So you got to take some personal responsibility, young person, um, and plug into people that's trustworthy. Okay. Now, granted, everybody deserves to get paid something for helping you. Okay. Nobody should be doing anything for free to help you manage your money. Okay. Because it takes time for that person to be away from their families or whatever to see about your finances with their clients that they're helping. So they should make a percent of something to help you make sure you're in good standings with your money, that you're paying taxes on what you should be paying taxes on, and that you're and all those different things. So you got to do your vetting. You got to get somebody that you trust. Um, Family members, you got to be trustworthy. Okay. I know there's some things my son would love to do, but he don't have any pressure from me and his mom about buying us a house or any of that stuff. It'd be great if he, one day he's able to do that, even though he's playing NFL. He has a family. He got other things that he has to be responsible for first before doing anything for his mom and dad. Even if he didn't have a family, I would still tell him the same thing. Secure yourself for your future family, right? Secure that first. Then when you really get paid, making some money, then dad expect to have a little something, something in the driveway. Hey, I just said that to be funny, but yeah, I would think your kids, because of how you raise them, of course they're gonna want to do something for mom and dad, and they should. There's nothing wrong with that. But as parents, I don't ever want to put that pressure on my son, or if I had a daughter or whatever, and they got this opportunity that they have to do something right now. No, let's make sure you're secure. Let's make sure you're educated on how to handle this money. Let's make sure we get that stuff in place first, right? And then once we get all that stuff in place first, then let's look at, hey, how can you do something for mom and dad? Right? That's really how it should go. I'm not saying you shouldn't do something. You should do something. But let's make sure that they're secure, okay? And they got things in place for their future family, right? Like life insurance, all this different stuff. You know, let's make sure that's in place. And then as we get those things in order and get those things in place, investments and all those different things. Okay, we got those things strong and in place where, hey, we got some generational wealth secured now in the family. And then let's look at, okay, hey, maybe I can figure out now I know some things and I know how to buy this house for mom and dad. I know how to buy this car, right? For mom and dad and give back because they gave so much and sacrificed a lot, right? That's cool. But let's just make sure our young people are prepared and ready. Okay, so they don't mess up their opportunity. Okay, and if they do make a mistake, it's not one of the mistakes that's going to kill that's going to really hurt them. Right? We know everybody's going to make mistakes sometimes. And um, you got to have people around you that have more wisdom, knowledge, and common sense about some things. Somebody you can go talk to and say, okay, and don't go ask somebody something and then you're not going to listen and follow it. Don't waste their time and energy to sit down with you to share with you about how you should do some things, and then you don't even listen to it at all. You don't even take it in consideration at all. And when you could have avoided some pain, right? We're trying to eliminate as much pain as possible. We're trying to limit the pain. Okay. And so that's what this podcast is all about, man. So I appreciate you guys joining. I hope that you feel like when you come on Love the Game 24/7 podcast, and you got a young athlete in middle school and high school age that you're getting something from it, you know, I hope that you feel like I have something to offer because of my own personal experience. This is not theory that Coach Smith is bringing with Love the Game 24/7. This is personal experience from myself, from coaching young people, even my own kids. So I'm not coming from something that I think I um, will work, but I know will work because I've lived it, I've done it. Not just for myself and my own kids, but for others as well. And I hope that the story that I shared with you about the young man that um, um, the little story that I shared tonight resonates with you, and that you get something from it, and that you continue to, share this podcast with others that you know, um, and that you subscribe to my YouTube. You get out there and watch the video, and you share it with others out there. You uh, put it in the story, plug it to some other folks out there so they can get some help with their young person and get them prepared. And I thank my man Cleo for joining tonight and sharing that question. That was a great question. And I hope those of you who listen to this live or listen to the recording get something from it. Um, but definitely, you got to ask yourself these questions, parents and young person. Am I prepared? Am I ready to leave home and make the best of this scholarship that I was blessed to earn and that I worked hard for? That's given me all kinds of opportunities and connections, to help me secure a very good future. And I just hope that you uh, take this information and use it, and that it helps you. And so that was pretty much what I had tonight. I hope you look forward to joining me every Wednesday night at 6:30, and also every Saturday morning at 11:30. And it's always Eastern time with Love the Game 24/7 podcast. And I just love sharing and getting information. And like I said, I have this 10-week digital course. This is it. Um, and so we're getting rolling with the folks that I have, and I'll be doing another one soon. Um, and like I said, if you want to join um, and get going with me with the 10-week digital course, it's $9.97, and you can Cash App or PayPal at Love the Game 27, or Venmo at Jeffrey-Smith-745, 997. Um, and like I said, a lot of great things come with that. We got a community, Facebook community that I'm building and working on, so we can all share stories and things that are happening, to be sure we limit the pain for our young people and families, so that these young people can really excel and make things happen. And I do believe, Cleo, that hey, your son is going to do well in his soccer, and you just keep him focusing on his strengths and focus on those things and make those strengths stronger. And as he does that, even the things that he's weak in will become stronger. And so I appreciate you guys. I hope you have a blessed rest of your evening, rest of the week. I'll see you Saturday on Love the Game podcast on YouTube, IG, and Facebook. Share it with your friends. Get on here, like I said, and spark your recruiting opportunities, and join the movement here with Love the Game 24/7. And let's boost your recruiting opportunities so that you can go to the next level and fulfill your dream of playing college sports. All right, guys, have a blessed evening and take care.